Mm.
And we're live. Welcome to the Classy Liberal podcast. I'm your host, Classy Liberal, and today's guest is who some may call the political filthy Frank or the last hope for humanity. Master Shadow Ninja, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, my dude. Just living like Larry and trying to be based as hell.
All right. So why do you call yourself that?
What, being based?
Master Shadow Ninja.
Oh, funny enough, the reason why I called myself that, it's a long story. I used to be, so I was this edgy 13-year-old, right? And I played, Call of Duty World at War, and I was in a clan known as Ninja. And basically it was a friend, couple of friends of mine, and uh and I just created the clan, right? And we all had different names but has ninja in it. Originally I had Shadow,
Mhm.
right? And Shadow Ninja. And then the one who has, the best KDR, the best uh ranking would end up getting the title master. And then, when I was a kid at that time, I basically ended up taking my leader's position, and then I ended
Oh,
up getting the rank for master. But the
damn.
f- but I was a nasty player at the game. I was incredibly toxic, and now nowadays, like, I kind of grew onto me, and the reason being, right, the reason being is because uh what you call it is the reason being is because people will think that I'm an edgy 14-year-old, and
Right.
with that username, and then when they start talking to me, they're gonna be like, oh, whoa, that's a surprising thing, you know and I just like that element of surprise of, like, oh man, this guy can actually, form a coherent sentence and not, just be some random Fortnite kid or something. I like the surprise factor behind it, if you know what I mean.
Sure, sure.
Like, not, don't judge a book by its cover kind of deal. You know,
Right. I got what you're trying to say. But I can just call you Josh Way.
Jash Hui, or what you call it, MSN.
MSN.
You
All
can
right.
call me Jash. People call me Josh. That's my English name. My Portuguese name is, Josue. But uh, either or, really.
All right, man. So, what made you want to start a YouTube channel?
What made me originally start my YouTube channel? Well, there's a multitude of things, right? Originally, I at the very beginning, I was actually from the Nintendo and or Pokemon community with a friend of mine. He's the one who brought me up to this. His name, well, he considers non-binary now, but his name was Illis Dark 8, but now he goes by the name of Fiddledew. And you know, we started out of a podcast known as Radio Whirlwind, and we did a lot of things, like talking about news of video game news from Pokemon to Nintendo stuff. And what ended up, separating uh, between between us, right, was I wanted to basically get edgy. I wanted to branch out. I wanted to do my own thing because I knowing myself, I don't really like walking on eggshells. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're trying to say. You
Mhm.
just wanna, yeah, like you said, do your own thing and don't let other people sort of, how do you say, influence you or control, how you wanna, do your content.
Yeah.
So yeah, about your content though, you said that you told me one time that you were originally like just another commentator, but then at some point you wanted to do, I guess, more political things or cultural things.
Hmm. Well, to be honest with you, when it comes to these contents, I uh, I I am either incredibly high or incredibly drunk whenever I edit my videos, and it's just usually something that is a a spur of the moment, and basically it's it's just uh, it's just random shit posting, to be quite frank. I just
Yeah,
wanted to have some fun with it. I'm not really politically affiliated with anybody. I went through a multitude of phases when I entered both the commentary community and the skeptic community, and I feel like as if I'm somewhat of a bridge between two communities because I'm seeing the communities somewhat merging with each other. And
sure.
to be quite frank, it's just kind of getting ridiculous at this point. So that's why I make fun of them.
All right.
Mm.
All right, cool. So, how do I put this? I remember in a private conversation, you told me one time that you describe yourself as an egoist.
Yeah, I am an egoist.
And that's a philosophy, not just another way of saying that you have a big ego.
No, it's a philosophy in general, and people often confuse it with hedonism when there's the difference between egoism and hedonism. It's hedonism is something to do with your what you're doing currently, what you're being impulsive about. An egoist, an honest one, right, would actually scan through the environment and pick things that benefit the individual or him or herself in the long term. Like, what is their best interest? You know what I mean? It's a foundational philosophy where you can build a strong foundation for yourself, and then you can pick out whatever you want that benefits your individuality, your unique. So in regards to it, think of it this way. I'll just water it down for some of the audience. What egoism in general, it's basically, think of it as a pizza dough, right?
Okay.
That's your ego, and the toppings are whatever ideology that seeks to fit you. You can be a liberal and be an egoist. You could be a conservative and an egoist. You could be a fascist and an egoist. You could be a communist and an egoist. And you could be an anarchist and an egoist. You could pick it. You have the freedom of choice, the whatever idea that suits you. you know and the reason being that I picked that ideology is because there's a multitude of things. I believe that a lot of people, and in every individual, uh, are doing things that are within their own self-interest, consciously or unconsciously.
Sure.
So
All
you
right.
know
So how does like someone who's like into memes and makes filthy Frankie-esque type content know so much about like philosophy and politics and stuff like that?
oh man, this is a funny thing. I was originally brought up in a very, very religious household. My
Mhm.
mother is a theologian. She has a PhD in theology, and my father is a deacon.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like the best of yeah.
yeah. And theology, a little fun fact about me, theology, you know, it's been very much rooted within my family, and it I always ended up questioning these things, like a healthy child would do, in my opinion.
Right.
And that's when I ended up, learning more the ins and outs of theology and things like that, because I used to be a little shit when I was a kid.
Right.
And it's due to the fact that like I have this tendency of basically poking things and see if it actually moves. You know what I mean? And that's how I it got me to church school so many times for being that impulsive, because I was that curious. I tend to make people um, basically pop their bubbles and start what you call it, getting mad. But I just wanted to see how they react, and how how could I learn something new about myself at the same time. It's really interesting stuff.
All right.
So
So, do people ever like give you heat for being an egoist?
oh yes, definitely, a lot of times actually, on both sides of the spectrum, when it comes to politics. I get called a degenerate by fascists, and communists call me a fascist sometimes. So you know, there's no going away from it. It's hilarious. And right now, when it comes to egoism, there's a lot of basically crypto communists that are using egoism as a certain shield to basically revise Max Stirner's work, when Max Stirner wasn't actually wasn't an egoist communist. He was just himself. That's
I mean, he founded the ideology. So.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did.
All right. But a criticism of egoism would be something like, well, human beings are naturally very altruistic. It's sort of ingrained in our evolution to think about other people and to put other people before ourselves, to sort of want to do something, search for something uh, beyond ourselves or something like that.
Something that is beyond ourselves. Well, that criticism, it could be easily refuted
Mm,
by saying that there you heard of Richard Dawkins, right? I know
yeah.
as of late that he's getting a lot of flack, but when it comes to the selfish gene, when he specifically said, and there's some evolutionary biologists that agrees with his statement, that when you do things that are appearing to be altruistic, your genes are acting in selfish behavior just to a means of survival.
Right.
That's when I say, when you're doing things that appear to be altruistic, that you're doing it selfishly just so you could survive, and it's fine. You know, what I used to be, basically saying like, hey, it's okay to be selfish. It's okay to be egocentric. It's fine, and it's okay that you want to help others, right? If
Mhm.
you feel good, helping others, by all means go right ahead and help others. But I'm just letting you know you're doing it within your own self-interest, you
Okay.
know, because of the fact is, if when you're doing something that is altruistic, right, you feel good,
Sure.
right? You release dopamine, and the dopamine, your brain gets uh,
Yeah.
like
It causes a
you
chemical reaction.
causes a chemical reaction to make yourself feel good, and you want more of it.
Mhm.
A lot of philanthropists do this, and it's fine and dandy. And right now, I'd say mostly people on the right, um, that basically conflates egoism with like let's say like nihilism or uh, you know um, absurdism or like a subjective morality or whatever. They think that like oh an egoist is a complete degenerate, while the the left would think oh an egoist is basically you know somewhat of a fascist or something like that because of the notion of defending your own property to and to take or to defend, and that's your own thing. And it's easily strawmanned because of how I would say like how radically individualistic uh, some egoists can appear. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to say, though. I
Yeah.
guess that is sort of an ideology I've thought about before. Actually,
Hmm.
before I get to the next point, so any of those people you just described, conservatives, liberal, leftists, whatever, you would just call them spooks, right?
Oh yeah, for the most part, I'd say they're mostly spooks, and I think the dynamics between conservatism, like American conservatism, and liberals, are basically dying out. You know, I'd say the when the Generation X and the Boomer generation conservatives when they completely fade away, it's going to be basically millennials and Gen Z, and a, a huge portion of the millennial demographic are mostly liberals, which is fine and dandy and whatever. But what's going to happen, and I'm calling this out, that people who do consider themselves liberal today will become tomorrow's conservative. And I think personally that, things like a social democrat,
Mhm.
right? Like a moderately liberal person is going to become a right winger when things get replaced. And the new left is going to be another issue, and it's just going to be, a socialist or a communist with postmodern dynamics. So it's kind of weird, but Jordan B. Peterson, for example, even though I disagree with him a lot, but when he says something about the postmodern neo-Marxist kind of thing,
Right.
what he really meant to say is the new left. That's the thing. And a funny thing is, Marxists don't like postmodernism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because Marxism is a modernist philosophy.
and heavily and heavily what you call it, industrious
Sure.
ideology. Very meritocratic as well. That's the funny thing. Hmm. So as so yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned someone that we've talked in here in the Classy Liberal podcast at least I want to say 2 or 3 times. I know we talked about it with Otterface. I think Sandre talked about him as well. I can't really think of anyone else who might have talked about Jordan Peterson on this show. But yeah, I think you have a little bit to say about Dr. Jordan B. Peterson.
Oh, Peterson is amazing when it comes to psychology.
Sure.
I think he steps out of his lane a little too much when it comes to things like nutrition
Oh yeah.
and things like philosophy, because the way he especially when it comes to philosophy, the way he breaks things down, he usually psychoanalyze um theology, but he doesn't actually dissect it through epistemology. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's he's not that like he's going by it as a psychologist,
Sure.
not a philosopher. That's what I'm trying to say.
To
But
be honest, I don't think really Jordan Peterson really understands philosophy all that much. I'm not saying he doesn't understand it. I'm sure he has to have some like knowledge of it in order to talk about it though. But I find it interesting that he, very much criticizes postmodernism, yet he would use postmodernistic type of arguments to defend his position. So he likes to like sort of deconstruct things to the point that you question, what is and that sort of stuff. And in my opinion, that sounds like something a postmodernist would do.
Yeah. And I think postmodernism is a powerful tool to use in the marketplace of ideas. And the reason being is when I was reading a philosopher by the name of Michel Foucault, and he was talking about power dynamics. And power dynamics, the notion of power, right? Basically, I've been saying this to many people around my circles is if you want your idea to come out and if you want to gain more power to your version of the truth, you got to appeal to the self interests of each individual. And the more you successfully get each individual, self interest to be appealed, the more powerful your version of the truth will appear to be compared to your ideological opponent, you know. And it's a very dangerous tactic, by the way, depending on who use it, because there's a lot of malevolence when it comes to these certain people. And I'm beginning to notice that when it comes to most of our community. So yeah.
All right. Okay, sure. It's something I really have to read up more on. And just to clarify for some people, when you call yourself an egoist, your philosophy is based on Max Stirner's philosophy. You're not like, let's say, an objectivist, like Ayn Rand or anything like that.
Oh, anything like that. Well, like I respect Max Stirner's philosophy, but more so, even Stirner said not to follow his own, philosophy. You pick yourself. It's basically what it is. You gotta do it yourself. You pick within your own self interest. My This is my own, unique. I am my own property. I'm not Max Stirner's property. Max Stirner basically made it, his own self interest, not mine. I'm picking what I believe in. You know what I mean?
Oh boy, please tell me you're not calling him a spook.
I'm not calling him a spook. I'm calling him a necromancer.
All right, all right, all right. All right, cool. And like, okay, so you have this sort of like philosophy,
Hmm.
and then we sort of can extend that to ethics and epistemology and that sort of stuff. Where do you like consider yourself in terms of like politics and stuff like that, like American
Oh,
politics? Like, are you on the
American.
left or?
Little fun fact: I'm politically bipolar.
Hmm.
I went all over the place. I used to be a Marxist, and then I used to be a liberal, and then I went from that to basic right wing libertarian. But then, as I stepped out of my, range, and as I start working a lot in real life, and I'm seeing a bunch of, jobs being replaced by machines through automation, I'd have to say for the time being, I'd I like a little bit more on the right-wing libertarian when it comes to economics for the time being, because I do believe that there are still resources to manifest for now.
Okay.
But when the time comes when things change, I will jump into the left, because of these things that are happening. I do believe some aspects of the left are better, much better prepared when it comes to automation. So I'm a very flexible person. I'm just saying, like, uh, for the time being, I would say a little bit on the right for now, but I'm very open minded to go to the left again. So
Okay, that's really interesting. So, I hate to use this word, but oh
hmm.
boy, you kind of sound a little bit politically fluid then.
I'm politically fluid. Well, I was about to say I'm more so of a I read up on people like Nick Land, and yeah, I'm pretty much into cyber nihilism and transhumanism, but I'm thinking of more into techno nihilism,
Mm.
uh, because I do believe that we we do need, to transition to go beyond human. And also it's in within my own self-interest that I do want to become a, something greater than human, to bypass my own genetic limitations so we could do cooler things and um do whatever, pretty much. Now, I don't think that my ideology in general is necessarily complete, because I do believe that if you set your ideas in stone, you're going to stagnate and not grow as an individual. Always keep your mind open and be as fluid as possible.
Okay, I think Sandre would have to probably say things about that. I know for a fact that he's not a very big fan of transhumanism. I think his argument is that, yeah, some of the ideas of transhumanism is cool, but it's just not scientifically possible, at least with the technology we have now.
With the technology that, well, there's different strains, different ideas of transhumanism. Like, there's the biological aspects of transhumanism, and then there's cybernetics. I'm pushing in a contemporary sense, I'm pushing more of a biological form of transhumanism, trying to find a way. This is a little funny thing. I go to university for sports medicine, kinesiology and nutrition, and I'm more interested in seeing what can we do to push or break the limitations that we have physically. Like, it's fascinating for me to you know see, let's say, like, professional strongmen or lifters picking up cars, deadlifting cars in general, or doing these unconventional feats of strengths, pushing trucks, like things like the people like the Mountain, from what's that name of the show? What is it? Game of Thrones. You know, that big, muscular guy. He was like the world's strongest man, and it's just, yeah, I'm just like, wow. How do we get how do we get more people to be that strong? How do we get to
Uh,
there?
I mean, I don't think we're really at that point yet. I mean, I don't
Not
think all the protein powder in the world or working out can get you to that.
no, no, and I don't think so. But, like, I think we need to do more research on that, and it will be amazing to see what we could do with it. And also, like, when it comes to other things like endurance, I like watching people like Usain Bolt just
Oh yeah.
running really fast, and it just I'm just like, wow, like, how do we get more people to do that? And it's that's what I'm and I think that, like, if we manage to improve our genetics and nutrition. I think that's the first step to achieving transhumanism, but in a biological sense, not in a cybernetic sense. Not yet, in my opinion. Mm.
So okay, I mean that's an interesting point of view. So okay, maybe I shouldn't scoff too much at transhumanism if like their goals are realistic and what they want to do is just promote health, fitness, nutrition, that sort of stuff. I guess
Yeah,
I
that's
can.
the that's sorry to interject, but that's the biological, evolutionary fitness kind of thing.
All right. I'm gonna do something I've never done before in the Classy Liberal podcast. I'm actually gonna look at the chat and ask something there because normally the chat is dead, right? So someone keeps saying, tell Joshua Steve shies and his stuffed animals.
Okay. Well, Steve Shives and stuffed animals. Mm, that's that's something. It's all right. I don't like Steve Shives. He's a piece of shit. So yeah.
Okay. I don't know what they asked that. Thoughts on Julius Evola?
Oh, Julius Evola. That guy is yikes. I honestly disagree with him because he's into a spiritual form of racism and fascist mysticism, and in all honesty, it kind of impedes against my own self-interest because of the fact that he's a neo-fascist. He just, in a spiritual level, he wants to separate the races. In my honest opinion, I want all the races to come in and mix.
Oh boy,
So,
yeah. There we go. This is something I want to talk to you about. Techno mulattoism.
oh yes, techno mulattoism, the ideology that that techno mulattoism is the ideology that I and a couple of friends coined, and it's basically technocracy with mass miscegenation, voluntarily speaking, by the way.
So,
And it's basically like we do agree that there are different populations, but we do want different populations to mix so we can produce offsprings that have more resistance to other illnesses and disorders. You see, like it's okay to that. There's a little saying that of mine. It's okay for your rice to touch your beans, if you catch my drift. And there are the ethno nationalist types that don't like the idea of mixing. Well, I'm just like, well, I don't want to have an extra thumb. So
yeah, fair point, fair point. So this is like some sort of like reversed race realism, or this is like some sort of integration, but you know,
it
yeah,
it kind of bothers me that the internet has weaponized politics, especially in science, when especially when it comes to controversial sciences. I think we do need to research more and investigate more about it
sure.
so we can end up improving the environment and improving um, our biology just so we can, live much more efficiently as human beings. And it wouldn't it be in your own, best interest to actually investigate certain things that are incredibly dark so you can actually know what you're dealing with in the future?
Okay.
So,
We gotta do a video on this one day,
mm,
cause this, yeah, I mean, it sounds funny, but I'm starting to think that this actually might not be a terrible bad idea. I mean, I've heard the idea of a tenocracy before, some sort of society where, yeah, it's ruled by elites, but the elites actually know what the hell they're doing. They're experts in their own respected fields and whatnot. But it is voluntary though, so people don't have to
Mm-hmm.
integrate if they don't want to. But it if you do, tax
Right.
break.
Yeah, no, like I've talked to many people about this, and it's it's really funny. I've talked to many ethno nationalists or alt writers, and I have no problem with them. And I've seen progressives screeching about like ethno states are bad, and I'm just like, okay, whatever, fuck it. You let them have their ethno state, right? Let them let them have it. My state is going to be cooler than theirs because I'm going to have everybody in it, and everyone's going to be happy, and it's going to have nothing but blackjacks and hookers. And they all that want that, Skyrim traditionalism crap, while I'm going to have cool shit like
Casinos.
casinos, blackjack, and hookers, and everyone's gonna have Modelo's and Coronas, and everyone's gonna have a good fucking time. Like I don't understand, you know? Yeah.
Oh boy, you're gonna give the ethno nationalists a run for their money.
Oh, speaking of which, like it is about the money at the end of the day.
Hmm.
you,
It somehow goes back to egoism.
you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to the marketplace of ideas, it's regulated by morons, and the true absolute winner in the marketplace of ideas is Patreon.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, uh, I know this because my Patreon. Uh, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. I've lost the marketplace of ideas. No, obviously I'm just starting out, so it's gonna take me a while to actually have some fans and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, definitely. I mean, like certain YouTubers are like, "Oh look, we gotta seize the means of production and redistribute wealth." But hey, donate to my Patreon. Okay, that's a good meme. Yep.
I mean, I understand that people have to like sort of make a living themselves in the capitalist system, but I guess if they are so committed to their socialist or leftist ideology, wouldn't it make sense that these leftist content creators would sort of like ally themselves and create just one Patreon and
Hmm.
sort of share, distribute the earnings from that Patreon?
It's pretty funny when you mention about that. When it comes to mixed market economy or a capitalist economy, guess what? You know what? You know what? We could do. We can. Marxists can even do it in a capitalist society. It's called forming a cooperative. Holy crap! Like, wow. It's a really funny. It's a good meme, really. But honestly, things like socialism. I think you know it's a good idea, but honestly, we're the wrong species to do so. It's just because we're a bunch of selfish creatures. That's my own opinion on that for the time being. So
Sure, sure.
yeah.
So, how do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, in 10 years, not dead, hopefully,
Okay.
but in 10 years, I hopefully make my own business. I'm actually forming a gym, and hopefully, I instruct a couple of classes and stuff. I'm a very simple guy when it comes to these things, and just build up my own franchise. That's
That
pretty
sounds
much it.
cool. Yeah, sounds pretty cool, actually. I actually have a friend who actually, she actually has like a lot of gym equipment, and she's thought about the idea of like having some sort of gym from her home. But it would work better if she had a garage though.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah. So like we're just gonna we're I just go with the flow, to be honest. Just to be as fluid as possible. But yeah, and in about 10 years, I see myself, you know, with a pretty nice degree in kinesiology and have one part rehabilitating people, and the other part is having a gym. So yeah.
Oh man, that sounds like a dream actually. It's always good to have like ideally like more than just one source of income. So
Definitely.
yeah. Who knows? I would like that this platform I'm creating is would become a second source of income. Um,
Mm, yeah. I was about to say, if you wanted to make a second source of income, don't expect it to be a second source of income. Just, have fun with it. That's what YouTube is all about. You broadcast yourself and you just, have fun with it. I used to make content like every week or every other week, but now I just post whenever I feel like.
sure.
You know what I mean? Because if I start posting content regularly, I'll end up burning myself out, and I would end up getting, bored.
Sure.
And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, maybe not second source of income, but at least it'll help me buy coffee, stuff like that.
Yeah, no worries, man. But just go with the flow with it. Have fun.
Like honestly, like I think with like $10 a month, like that's actually pretty good. Like I can actually do a lot of stuff with that.
Mm,
Uh, and $50 a month, I think that would be like the dream, to be honest. Like that's
uh, I see. But my dream here is pretty big. I do in fact want some of that Jordan B. Peterson Patreon money
oh,
so that I could use that Patreon money and actually disappear off of this face of this planet and not interact with a lot of monkeys over here.
have you seen how many patrons he has or how much he gets a month? A month.
Oh yeah, a month is like 80 grand or something, and I'm just like, with man, with 80 grand, holy cow, I could use that to you know n- get out of here and not interact with monkeys.
I mean, yeah, he gets paid all that money just for telling people to clean their rooms.
Right. And what I mean by monkeys, I'm just talking about like just people who are chimping out basically everybody who's
Right.
just dumb. That's pretty
Okay.
much, like they deformed into a chimpanzee. That's that's what I mean by it. I'm the most politically incorrect person out there, just letting you know. Like,
I don't know, man. I mean, Sandre is pretty has no filter, and I'm not just saying that because his head is made of fire, but he's not afraid to say what's on his mind.
I make Sandre look like a virgin.
Oh, I'm
Mm,
gonna show this clip to him.
Go right ahead.
Nah, like I don't think I can just like let you go with that statement. Like that's
Like in terms of political incorrectness, I make Sandre look like a virgin.
like you see, I can sort of like buy into like some of the weird stuff you say about like egoism and techno mulattoism, but this, yeah, I'm gonna have to like probably like timestamp this and like show them the part of
All right,
interest.
go right ahead.
So yeah, when this interview is finished, I'm gonna show.
Yeah, that'll be pretty hilarious actually. I like Sandre. He's a really good guy, and he actually helped me out on a couple of things with chemistry. Really good guy. Also, Joan is pretty nice too. So
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I've talked to Sandre a few times, and he's really cool actually. And I think his channel is really underrated. He makes really great science content, and he's very entertaining as well.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, you mentioned chemistry. How much chemistry have you taken? Have you taken like all the way into organic chemistry?
Okay, so basically, I've only done just basic chemistry
Okay.
and um, a little bit of organic chemistry. But for the
Mm,
most part, for my field in particular, it's nutrition
mm,
and human kinetics, or kinesiology, as
okay.
well as physics,
Right.
and a lot of physics, calculus. Oh my goodness, a lot of calculus, and that hurts my brain just thinking about it.
I love calculus, man. I
I
freaking took differential equations in the summer and in 6 weeks actually. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hated calculus, including, like, I could do fine with physics, but man, just so much calculus, and it made me want to, like, just, I don't know, Kurt Cobain myself. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, so yeah, and my field in particular is, in the science world, right? I'm considered a meme because, if you look into the fitness industry, or fitness YouTubers, they have a lot of bro science in
Mm.
reg- in regards
Well, what's
to
bro science?
bro science is basically pseudoscience for meatheads, right? And
Okay.
it's basically saying, like, oh, like, I'll give an example, like in veganism, right? There's this person named Freely the Banana Girl, and she believed that eating 30 bananas a day would actually help you lose weight.
Mm. I don't know. Bananas have a lot of sugar. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that. I mean, look, I don't. I'm not an expert in nutrition at all, but yeah, I know bananas have potassium and some other stuff, but I'm pretty sure like you're missing a lot of other stuff if all you're eating are bananas.
Hmm. Right, right. And it even, like, things that are good for you, if you have too much of it, you'll get fat. There's, you gotta monitor your calories and all that kind of good stuff. It's very basic things, but as I see what's happening in the market, and especially at the job that I'm at, I'm seeing a lot more cases of obesity and things like arthritis rising to the population. In about, I believe, I'd say in a decade or two, the American population, when it comes to obesity, I'd say, don't quote on me on this. You can quote on the CDC for it. For the time being, I'd say 40% of the population in America is overweight, while the 20% of the 40 are clinically obese. But within a decade or two later, if the demographic is consistent, it's going to that 20% that are currently overweight are going to be obese. So yeah, that's a frightening statistics. And I'm just kind of, sitting there like, well, guys, I know, like, people on the left wants things like free healthcare, and I'm just sitting there like, guys, I know how to get to it. But, like, you want to make things cheaper and, much more efficient for all of us.
Right.
Um, you know, you can't have, let's say, like, you kind of have to cut off some of these benefits to people who harm themselves purposely. I mean, like Japan, for example, they strip out healthcare to those who are very much incredibly overweight. Now there are people with thyroid issues that affects
Right.
their metabolisms and whatnot. But that only makes up, I'd say, somewhere not even like 1 or 2% of the population, sort of somewhere between.
Sure.
I'm not 100% sure, but you know, things that like healthcare. Oh my god, that's often talked about in my workplace, and I'm just like, oh please, like stop. uh, but yeah. So what else is there?
All right. I guess we can end with Brazilian politics. I know for a fact that you are an immigrant from Brazil, correct?
Oh well, I'm actually a son of an immigrant.
Okay, there we go. Sorry.
I was just, I'm actually born in the States, and then
Okay.
I moved back to Brazil,
Oh, I
so
see.
I could end up getting dual citizenship. I lived in Brazil for half of my life. You know, I went around. I used to live in it's a really ghetto area. I used to live in City of God in Rio, and it's really close to the favela, and it was pretty bad. But it was a lot worse for my parents when they were growing up, and my what else? And my great grandmother, she is a my grandmother and my great grandmother are native, and they used to live in mud huts. And then my mother, my grandmother ended up upgrading the house, and it was kind of like a shit shack. And then when my mom, she was actually the one who got out of the slums and ended up becoming a teacher. And that was a very powerful thing at the time, because in the politics in Brazil, if you're my mother is like a very strong, independent woman, and that was a extremely progressive thing to do at the time, because you know the man has to be in charge of things, be the breadwinner and all that. My dad is not the most intelligent person around, but he's good with his hands. He was a tradesman. But my mother is was the one who you know for the most part, like an educator. And when she was a teacher, she actually pulled a lot of children out of the ghetto and got to them into higher education.
Mm,
Yeah.
right.
And it's a very it's a very like bold thing to do. My mother, like, I actually do admire her, and the amount of strength that she has done. I'm just thinking, how do I how do I end up becoming as based as that? Like,
Yeah.
how do I get to that point, to reach this level beyond based, for the most part. And you know Brazil at this point in time, eh, like, it is like, I honestly don't understand it. This is probably a cultural bias, just coming over here in the States, and it bothers me a lot. It's the over obsession with race, and it's so normal. Like, when I was growing up, I've seen a black guy with a Japanese person, you know,
Right.
just chilling, and they're married. And my father, he's like a lot more ethnically ambiguous, and my mother is also mixed with native. And I'm just like, in America, I'm just like, well, I'm a bit appalled by this. Like, you guys, have done so many momentous strides, but yet you cling on to the past. Brazil had a lot more fucked up things. when it comes to, politics. And there are people who are just freely miscegenating and, you know, doing whatever to survive. Right now, in terms of like, I'd say, I kind of blame America for having Jim Crow at the beginning. Like, I could understand that to a certain extent. Brazil never had a Jim Crow. Funny enough, it was kind of like Australia in a way, as like a prison colony. So they brought in like Portuguese, Jewish, and African slaves, and they just didn't really separate them. So people just are together.
Right.
And and the thing about Brazil, funny enough, like historically speaking, in terms of racism, that ended up abolishing fairly quickly after, I believe, after like multitudes of dictatorships, because in Brazilian culture, they have this strong sense of Catholicism and Christianity, that they believe that we're all God's children, and we bleed the same type of blood, we have the same type of emotion, and we are all brothers and sisters, kind of thing. Unless you're what you're using witchcraft, then you will get jumped, you know.
Right.
Then you, yeah, that Brazil has a religion problem, not a race problem, that much. I mean, there's racism everything, but not to the extent that the Americans come in and just like, oh, this is a thing. But no, I'd say there is a huge sexist, homophobic, and a religion problem. But in terms of race, not really. And it's really funny in terms of identity politics. When American identity politics showed up in Brazil, oh man, it ended up becoming who's whiter than who, and it even the ones that pass in as white, some of the people were like, "Shut up! You're literally the 56% meme." And it's the funniest thing. The terms of like the concept of whiteness came from the Anglosphere, not not in Latin America. It's the funniest
Yeah.
thing. Uh, like there's some truth to behind the meme, right? Like it's basically like there everyone's just kind of arguing and Brazil's just chilling in the background, and basically Argentina, you see like a picture of Argentina and as this black guy saying, "I'm whiter than you," and that's literally what it is. And it's the funniest thing. But in terms of sexism and you know homophobia, there is that, I wish some of that nice energy that American SJWs have can actually project it to places that actually needs to be liberated. you
Yeah.
know like Brazil has state sponsored gay conversion therapy that is funded by the church. That is ridiculous. And if I was down in Brazil, I would consider myself as a progressive.
Mm.
But
At least for social issues.
for social, oh, I would say, yeah, for social issues. Economics, I don't really know. It's a
Sure.
different situation.
Hmm.
But to to be quite frank, it's it's a a different situation, and there's this issue when it comes to global politics. You can't really use an American lens to dissect a European European politics, because the situation's completely different. You can't use a Brazilian political lens to dissect American politics. It, it's a lot. more difficult than that, you know. So that's my thing. And you know the problem that I have with American identity politics, you know, the contemporary progressive left, or the, you know, mainstream left, they used to be all about the worker and middle class. Now they forgot about the worker. They lost their objective, and that's why, you know, a lot of a lot of regular normative people um, ended up jumping into populism, and that's kind of bothering me because it's given me a similar vibe that what's going on in Brazil, you know,
Sure.
in some way. So, hmm, yeah.
Well, that's definitely really interesting. That's uh, a lot of stuff I honestly didn't know about Brazil. I think you would probably like to talk to Revenge of the Dreamer one time because he's actually at least his family's from Brazil. I think he came to America when he was like a baby or something, but he definitely has visited Brazil, and of course his whole family's Brazilian, so he definitely knows a lot about that. Um,
Mm. Oh yeah, no, like I definitely know. Like I would be interested in talking to him, even though like our opinions are completely different. Even though we have, I'd say we have a some we both came from the same culture,
mhm,
and the things like, but I think on social issues he would disagree with me on a lot of things, and he would think that I'm
sure,
crazy, and it's funny.
sure.
And and you know, we'll have to see, and we'll have to see what's gonna happen next. This is gonna be interesting. You know, I used to be, you know, like the whole SJW and what you call it, anti SJW thing. I used to be like, oh, SJW, stop touching my freaking games, re. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, where's the new shit?
Right,
I want some, you know, I want some new memes out. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm just like,
mhm,
well, I guess I'm gonna have to fill in with that gap because, you know, everyone's just turning into a chimpanzee, and I just like making fun of pretentious assholes on either side.
sure, sure.
So, is there any other question or something? Because I could go on and on and on because I really like, I'm somewhat of a narcissist to keep dragging things on.
No,
But
I've been enjoying this conversation a lot. I guess since you mentioned SJWs, I guess we could sort of finish something on that. I would consider myself. I hate labels, by the way, but sometimes they sort of make life easier, and it's kind of hard to sort of explain
yeah,
your whole ideology in like with people, and yeah. So I guess I would consider myself a sort of post anti SJW, and I want to make that a thing where I have my disagreements with the radical left. I don't like identity politics. I'm not interested in social justice, and I don't like the way certain people um, want to have implement equality. I'd say freedom is more important than equality. However, I don't think the left is really all that bad in the sense that I don't think they're destroying Western civilization though.
oh,
I don't
speak.
think they're benefiting it, but I don't think my life has been ruined because of left. Were you
Oh
gonna say?
man, I was about to say, you said Western civilization. This is one of my favorite memes out there.
Uh,
Oh my god, it's hilarious. Oh, you know when this is like, in a metaphysical level, it's freaking hilarious. So when you see these people that are preaching about traditionalism, right?
mhm. Yeah.
I think about you know, Spartan warriors railing each other in the ass, right? Because back in the day, in Spartan times, you know, it's okay and it wasn't gay to rail each other in the ass. But now, when when homosexuality came in, oh, the West is falling, guys. Man, the ever since the dawn of time, when things change, someone goes out and say the West is falling, guys. Oh my God. Oh, guess what? The Earth is round, guys. Listen, listen. The Earth isn't flat. Oh my God, Western civilization. The amount of times people keep saying that Western civilization is collapsing and nothing is happening at all, and we're just, progressing in terms of science, and we're not giving less of a shit to people's lifestyles, right? Man, the West must be a fucking tank for taking so many hits. Like I'm just like, wow, good meme, good meme, my guy. Like that is crisp hilarity right here, just unbelievable. Oh yeah, like oh androgyny. Oh my God, Western civilization is collapsing. Oh my God, like, oh, men wearing makeup. Oh, okay, guys, that's collapse of Western civilization. Oh, oh, polygamy. That's a collapse of Western civilization. No, shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
no one cares. No one fucking cares. Like,
Sure.
people online, right? They stick into their like monitor, right? They stick into this monitor for quite some time and view this whole entire world that it's completely um, bullshit. This view of like, oh, there's so many terrorist attacks or something like that. No, you step outside in the world and interact with people. You know, it's a lot better to go out in the real world than staying online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you sort of mirrored a lot of my thoughts. Um, actually. So, okay, I guess I'll just finish with my thoughts on this. So, I am opposed to. I agree with what you just said. I am opposed to intersectional feminism and stuff like that, and socialism, and a lot of these things. But I honestly don't see uh the negative impact that some of these anti-social justice people are talking about, though. Like, I'm not saying that it's not bad. I'm just saying that, like, life is actually pretty good and society has actually been progressing in a good way, though. And in fact, I think that sometimes they'll criticize the left for, being too sensitive, but they're the ones freaking out over, oh, Shira character looking different, or certain video games, I don't know, having like a lot of female characters. Like, to me, I'm like, those issues are really or not issues at all. They're trivial. Like, really, you're gonna tell me Western civilization is collapsing because a few people want to identify as gender neutral, or just because some feminists, whatever, influenced the video game? Like, there really are bigger issues in the world, and it turns out, there's a lot of stupid people on the anti side and on the conservative side, and it turns out we're actually, uh, at least in the United States, though, we're still not done with the religious right and their BS, and
Oh
we're still
yeah.
not done with uh, whenever like conservatives try to like implement policies that restrict certain people's rights and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you when it comes to that. And the whole thing uh about what call it, the religious right, they're still around there, and I think for the time being we have to, criticize things like Christianity and Protestantism, including there, as well as many other forms. But I do believe that we're ignoring other Abrahamic religions, and things like Islam is definitely a very aggressive system. I'm not saying the Muslims are at fault. I'm just saying the idea,
Yeah.
the Quran
Hmm.
is something that we need to criticize on. But every time we try to deconstruct or try to criticize it, there are a lot of people to this day that are calling things out like Islamophobia, and that's I think people are using phobia as as a cop out term. I honestly think that you know uh, phobia is an irrational fear of something. I'm not afraid of anybody. If someone's going to try to physically remove me just because I have a belief system, then square up, really. But as for the other thing is, if you can deconstruct Christianity and criticize it, why can't we criticize Islam as well? That's my honest opinion. And another thing is, I've been looking at this gentleman over here. It's by the name of Jacob Miller, and he said that I think Brazil should be invaded and their population replaced and their laws changed. That's that's actually pretty funny, and I think Brazil needs a new culture. That's also pretty funny too. I think you know at for the time being, I'd say that good luck when when it comes to changing Brazilian culture, because it's heavily deeply entrenched to Christianity. We got the race mixing down pat, but we God, it's so hard to deconstruct religion. It's so hard. Like I tried so many times with other people in my own culture, and replacing that's gonna take years and
Sure.
years and years to do so. But for the most part, the back to the what you're saying, uh, yeah, religion. I honestly think that in a historical context and all that, it's respectable. But taking it so literally, it's just mm, yeah, no. I can't jive with that.
Okay. So unless you have like anything else that, like, let's say you need to clarify or you think it's important, people need to know, then I think we can just end it here.
To clarify is I am for transhumanism. I don't really care about gender, to be quite honest. Like I'm aware, I do consider myself that deterministic in terms of biology. I'm aware about things that are limited within our biology, but I want to actually try to find a way to deconstruct it, to understand it. Like I I don't like I want to abolish these norms, you know,
Right.
anyways, but I'm aware about the biology and all the restraints that we have, and I honestly think that some sects of progressives or SJWs need to acknowledge that there are things that are limited within our own biology, but it doesn't mean that it's an end all be all. If you actually understand, you could find a way to like let's find a way to actually get rid of this limitation so we could move on.
Sure.
That's yeah. That's my whole thing. Um, but anyways, is there any other question? Anyone in the chat wanna give me a question?
I think we can just end it here. I think the chat
It's kind
is
of
not,
dying out. Yeah.
yeah, or they're not feeling quite intellectual today.
Mm.
But thanks for coming on the show. If anyone wants to check out Master Settled Ninja's channel, there will be a link in the description. There should also be a card somewhere, I think, in the upper right hand corner of this video. I really urge you to check it out. He makes great content, very entertaining, very informative. And yeah, thanks for coming
Yeah.
on the show, man.
Are you sure about informative? Because more than half of the time I'm actually either drunk or high. So
Are you
it's
intoxicated right now, actually?
I'm actually excruciatingly high right now.
Okay, that explains. Yeah, because you were different the other night, actually, and you're
Mm.
speaking slow. Okay, man. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. So yeah, if you'd like to check out other Classy Liberal podcast episodes, I urge to check out my channel. I also do live streams with Revenge of the Dreamer every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time Zone, and the link to that will be in the description. So until then, stay classy.
Base.